little ill, so if I turn off my camera, that's why.
Hope you're feeling better, Rachel.
I had made the click at that moment.
I hope you feel better.
Thanks. Yeah, that's what happens when kids are in daycare. You just get their colds.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we're ready to go, Mayor, whenever you're ready.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. And council, welcome to the June 14th, 2021 Auburn City Council meeting. Amy, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Amy, if you would please call roll.
Sure. Councilmember Berlant.
Here.
Amara.
Yes, here.
And Calvillo.
Present.
Riddell Harris.
Here.
And Mayor Stokely.
Here. Thank you very much. We'll move right into the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll give Amy a quick second to pull. Oh, maybe she's not doing the flag. If everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amy, that was quick. If that was you, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I do so many Zoom meetings, I've forgotten who pops the flag up and who doesn't. So, but thank you, Amy, I appreciate that. Next item on our agenda is the actual agenda approval. This is a time set aside for council members to ask or members of the public to remove, postpone, or change the listed sequence of items on our agenda. The agenda will be approved by a roll call vote of the council. Any council members have any adjustments to the agenda as presented?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say, it's my understanding we were going to pull, there was an item that our city manager wanted to pull off the agenda. Is that correct?
I saw in his witness protection program view
Yes.
that he shook. I saw him wave his hand. So John?
Yeah, I apologize that I'll get a light. Yes, Mayor and Council, staff is requesting that we just pull item number 12 off of the consent calendar.
John, did you mean off the consent calendar for discussion or just pull it from the agenda overall?
Let's just table roll.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. So I'll move approval of the agenda. Well, we need public comment, sorry.
Yeah, Amy, is there any members of the public who have comment on our agenda sequence?
There's not.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of the agenda as amended to continue item number 12.
I'll second it.
Amy, if you wouldn't mind a roll call vote.
Councilmember Berlant.
Aye.
Amara.
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Stokely.
Yes. So our agenda is set minus item number 12 on the consent. We'll go ahead and move right into the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved with one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any removal of any items removed will be considered after the motion is approved, after the consent calendar is acted upon. I'm going to ask, before we ask the council for any actions, to ask our city manager, John, to go ahead and run through and give us a quick, brief rundown of our consent calendar, please.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, a whole bunch of items on the consent calendar. Item 1, the minutes from May 10th. Item 2 are the warrants for the month of May 2021. Item 3 is the appointment of 2 individuals onto the Sustainability Advisory Committee, Kathy Johnson and Robert Whitson. Item number 4 is a renewal of the lease agreement with the Auburn Chamber of Commerce for 1103 High Street. I will tell you that we are basically moving the terms and conditions of the existing agreement over. It is a shorter agreement, and the reason for that, I know, is we have some discussions and a little bit of speculation on some other reuse items for that property. I've worked with the Chamber Executive, Jackie Weston. I think it's all coming together, but it's a 3-year agreement. Item number 5 is the transfer of real property. Items 6 and 7 are 2 job descriptions. One is for an administrative analyst position, which is a middle management. It's the entry level into the professional management series for all of our positions. Item number 7 is a public works position. One of the things that the staff is working on is a very strong manager series, which will be reporting to the city manager. That's what this public works manager does. It's not a director position, but it is a high-level manager position. Item number 8 is for city engineering services agreement. This is with Ponticello Consulting Engineers. Ponticello, with the departure of Chris Chiardella, we have a need for a licensed civil engineer in the state of California to be able to review and approve items. This is for a 1-year contract with Ponticello, up to 2 years, to come in and actually serve as the city's city engineer. In this case, they'll come in, serve in that role. They currently do that for a number of other cities. They do it. They've done it for Woodland, for Winters, Colfax, Lincoln, and Davis previously. They are currently on our on-call list. Item number 9 is an employment agreement with Nathan Bigwell to become our Administrative Services Director. This is an employment agreement which follows our standard employment agreement for directors within the city. A summary of the contract is as follows. It pays a salary of $150,000 a year. The leave benefits that accrue, both administrative leave, vacation leave, sick leave, are all the same as those which accrue to our employees and for our directors. The health benefits are the same as our city employees and the directors. Provides for a $300 a month auto allowance. There is a technology reimbursement component or benefit in it. Retirement is the same as afforded under both PEPRA. In the case of Nathan, I think he is a classic employee, so it'll be the 2% at 55. The evaluation is the same as for all employees. In this case, there is eligibility for a merit increase, and within the city's bonus program, there is a termination clause in the agreement which provides for a 6-month severance except for cause, and this position is an at-will position. Item number 11 is ratification of salary adjustments for our unrepresented and confidential employees. Item number 10 is an MOU or a memorandum of understanding for our City Hall Employees Association. Over the course of the next 2 years, there's a series of cost of living adjustments. There is bonus provisions that are provided for the positions over the course of the next 2 Januaries. This is within the parameters and included within the budget of items which have been authorized by staff. And then finally, item number 13 is an ordinance updating the Government Claims Act procedures for the city. Under this, it provides that the city manager and the city attorney would have approval authority or settlement authority for up to $40,000. This coincides with our basic spending protocols for items which are presented. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I'll go to the council, and does anybody have any questions and or items that they'd like to pull to discuss further? I see Alice's hand up and I saw Daniel, so we'll go with Alice first.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull items number 3 and item number 7 off the consent agenda.
3 and 7. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
I just wanted to pull item number 9 to give John an opportunity to introduce the new admin services director, since I see that he's in the queue here.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I don't have any myself. Amy, any members of the public have comments on our consent calendar?
There is no public comment for the consent calendar.
And I must say your cat looks very dapper tonight with his tie on.
He knows this is one of his last meetings, so he's going to show up a lot.
Not allowed to bring him to the chambers?
Still in discussion.
All righty. Okay, we have a modified consent calendar minus items 3, 7, and 9. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to adopt the consent agenda as amended to remove 3, 7, and 9.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Amy, would you mind calling roll?
Councilmember Berlant,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Waddell Harris.
Aye. Mayor
Spokely.
Yes. Thank you very much. First item up is item number 3, which is Sustainability Advisory Committee revisions and appointments. Alice, you pulled that. Do you want to go ahead?
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I reviewed this item, and I appreciate the individuals who have applied for appointment to this important committee. As you know, last year I drove the amendments to change the makeup of the committee to ensure that we had a stakeholder representation, appropriate stakeholder representation to advise the council. And that included, of course, the position of one member representing transportation/pollution control programs within the Auburn community. I understand that it's been very difficult to find someone to fill this particular position. Initially, when I thought about this, I was thinking that it would be great to have someone from the Air Quality Control District. I know that there was someone that had expressed some initial interest in that. And I thought that would be the perfect niche for them in there to really advise us on those air quality issues. It is my understanding, again, it's been very difficult to fill that position. We have someone now, Kathy Johnson, who is a scientist. When I read through her application, I was a little concerned that she did not possess the specific air quality control issues that we were trying to get to with the particular language in the committee. And I actually had the fortune of speaking with Kathy on the phone. I talked to her late this afternoon. She's a brilliant individual, works for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. And we've actually had an opportunity to work with a same colleague over at Department of Toxic Substances Control. I spent several years there much earlier in my career. In any event, I would like to be able to see Kathy serve on this committee. And so I think in order to truly do that, we would need to make an amendment to the enabling resolution itself. And so what I would suggest is that on page 18 and line item 20, I think it looks like it's 21, I think. It says that we have one member representing transportation/pollution control programs within the Auburn community. And I think that what we should do is actually change that to say one member representing transportation and/or air or water pollution control. I think that water pollution is certainly air and water are very different when you talk about contaminants, mitigation and cleanup. But they're both very important. And I know we have some issues of concern with regards to water contamination in the city with pesticide use and things of that nature. And that's really where Kathy's expertise is. And so I think that if we're able to amend the resolution, then we can very easily and comfortably put her into that particular role. And again, I think that she would provide a very valuable expertise for us at the city. And I'd like to be able to put her in there, but I just couldn't feel comfortable just in that air pollution piece. She just didn't fit. It was a little bit of a circle in that square peg. So this would be a way to get her there.
Okay, thank you. So you're proposing other amendments to our resolution creating the Sustainability Advisory Committee?
Yes, it was just, since we're going to be amending it, obviously right now what we have before us is not just the appointment of the two individuals, but the committee is recommending that we add an at-large position. So we're already talking about changing the composition of the committee anyway. So I think that we have a nexus there, and so we can certainly take action on that tonight without further notice per the Brown Act. But yes, I would just make that would be a suggestion that I would make, would be to change that particular provision to allow for air and or water pollution control.
Okay, so I'm going to ask our city attorney to weigh in on that, but while you're thinking about that, Gary, I'm going to move on to Councilwoman or Vice Mayor Amara's question. She has her hand up.
It's not a question. It's just a comment. And although I do think that Kathy Johnson would probably fit into the existing position, I have no problem in broadening the position. And if that feels more comfortable and fits better for the rest of the council, I would have absolutely no problem with that. And I think in meeting, she attended our last meeting, and she is very dynamic and would be a wonderful addition and help to our city, along with Rocky Whitson as well. So that'd be my only comment.
Okay, I follow up for you, Sandy, as I believe you're our city, well, you are our city representative from the council on that committee. One thing I found over the years is committees, particularly larger committees, tend to have a problem with attendance. How has your attendance been at your last few meetings that you've held? Is attendance strong? Are folks showing up for the meetings?
Yes, they are. Actually, it's we've always had a quorum. We've had some appear from Yosemite and different areas, but yeah,
makes it easier with the current rules in place. I understand that.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So no, that has not been an issue. But thank you for asking.
Great. Gary, do you see any issues with this? I mean, I personally don't think we have a problem, but do you see any issues with broadening the definition, if you will, of this position on this agenda where it wasn't explicitly mentioned in our agenda?
I don't, because of the language of the current resolution, which talks about pollution control already generally. I think you're just clarifying what's already in there. I don't think it changes who is appointed to that position. If it were beyond that, I would recommend bringing it back, but that doesn't appear to be what Council Member Dowden Calvillo is proposing.
Okay, and I guess the one question that I've got is related to the additional at-large member. We set out to create this committee, a year plus ago when we did, and we came up with a framework. Now we're adding another member. I guess the question I have is, are we adding another member to create an 8-member committee with the appropriate forethought to make sure that we're not, and I don't imagine this could ever happen, but it's certainly within the realm of possibilities for a item to come before the committee for a vote as a recommendation to this council where they split 4-4. Obviously, a 4-4 it would come to us, I believe, as a recommendation for not approving, or wouldn't even make it to us at that standpoint. Did the committee consider the fact that now they're an even member body and what that might look like, Sandy?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the committee, we actually spent a lot of time discussing this, and the at-large member we would like to appoint applied, and we had said that we thought maybe we had said yes, we thought he was going to fit into a category, and it turns out he didn't. And so he's done a lot of work. We feel very appreciative of his interest. He's always been there. We think he can be a great addition. And we did discuss the fact that adding one would create an even number, but I think the consensus was that we do a lot of work. The sustainability is a group that again does a lot of work. There's a lot of consensus in the jobs that they do, and they thought the more the better. They thought they'd be happy to create a ninth position, but they thought for now this might be the way to go. And again, the more manpower, the better, because they do have a lot of activities they're going to be doing, and they're going to need the manpower. So the long answer is, the short answer is yes.
Great. So this is our newest committee, and while I haven't had the opportunity to attend one of the meetings, which I plan to in the near future, have you guys got a work plan developed yet? Or are you still working on a work plan for the various initiatives and areas that you want to focus on behalf of the city of Auburn, Sandy?
Yes, they do. There's a work plan, and it should be coming back. And actually, yeah, why don't we let Presidente Michael Lemberg speak to that?
Yeah, thanks, Sandy. And Mayor, thanks for asking. We do have an outline of a work plan, and we're trying to formulate the best title for that can cover all the categories. We've also met with City Manager Don Levy about aligning that better with his particular initiatives that he's got going on. And so I think we've come to some pretty solid proposals that fill in and address some of the broad goals that we have put into the outline. Right now in Don Levy's possession is the list of initiatives we would like to pursue that we're asking for funding. What I haven't submitted formally is that framework or that outline. We can certainly do that if that's a request.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate you being here tonight. I personally think that once you guys are done vetting your work plan, it'd be a good thing to get to the council for us to take a look at. But I would suggest maybe you guys complete at the committee level what your plans are and developing that work plan, and then get it up to us to take a peek at. That's my recommendation anyway. I don't know if the rest of the council has any other further comments on that.
I think it's going to be coming at the next meeting.
That's right.
John.
Okay.
It's been submitted. So
Great. Any other comments from the council on this item?
I'd like to make a motion if there isn't.
Amy, my dog's gonna bark, sorry. Any comments, Amy, from the public on this item?
There's not.
Okay. I'm gonna ask Alice, she pulled it to make a recommendation if she wishes. Otherwise, Sandy, it sounds like she's ready to make a recommendation or a motion, pardon me.
Yeah, so my recommendation, and I believe that Sandy would prefer to make the motion, which is fine with me, but the language would read, one member representing transportation, comma, air or water pollution control. So programs within the Auburn community. That's the way the language would read for number 3 in the resolution.
And I think I heard Sandy, you second that?
Or I think Sandy wanted to make the actual motion. I was just reading the language.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Sandy.
I'll just do the whole motion, which is that we amend number 3 per the wording of Councilwoman Dowden Cavillo, and that we appoint Rocky Whitson for member at large, and add a member at large and appoint Rocky Whitson, and that we appoint Kathy Johnson for the pollution, air and water position.
I'll second.
Amy, if you wouldn't mind calling roll, please.
Councilmember Berlant,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Spokely.
Yes. Thank you very much. Next item up is item number 7. This is the Public Works Manager job description and salary schedule. Alice, I think you pulled this one also.
Yes, I did. And I'm getting over here to number 7 here. So really on this particular item, and I gave John a heads up that I would just be asking him to really discuss the differences between a public works director and the public works manager, just from a classification standpoint, and the difference in responsibilities, and how, and that fact that John would assume that public works director, so to speak, oversight. So John, that's the question I had, and I know you're prepared for it.
Yeah, thank you. Just the clarification really drops this position into what we're going to build as a very strong manager class within the organization. Economic and planning manager, city engineer, public works manager, the idea of having positions within the organization that are functionally managing positions with direct report to the city manager. One of the things that we're looking to do is build through our budget capital programming and the ability to use as needed our consulting engineering group to help leverage that. I think one of the really good things that you've seen Chris Chudella and Menjel do over the past number of months is they brought recommendations on building a very strong core within the public works and engineering side. And in this, the public works manager is meant to plug in, not necessarily just in a supervisory capacity over the other positions. Those positions can report to the city manager. And we expect that that's precisely what they're going to do. Conversely, this position gives an opportunity for us to have that position that's dedicated to getting the business of public works done. Pavement management system, managing our wastewater system, managing the capital programs for the organization. One of the things in difference to the past public works position is that the position is not going to be overseeing things like planning and building and some of those extraneous. So bottom line, this position is meant to be part of what will be a very strong upper level management core within the organization, specifically to manage the public works functions of the city. One of the things that we do by dropping it down just a little bit, it does free up a little bit of money for us to start bolstering a little bit of our professional administrative and analytical function. One of the things that our capital program will do is we are going to become more of a data-driven organization. How we look at our wastewater, as we do our GIS system, and it frees up a little bit of money for that admin analyst position to come in and actually do the work that is going to take away some of the day-to-day things that the manager would do, but we have more autonomy. The goal here is to make our public works division stronger. The chiefs have kind of picked up some of that as we build this other position. The one position that's not going away from all this, or like the transit manager or the project manager, we're keeping that position out there. It's still in the budget, but the public works manager will be more of that general oversight for all the things, budget, programs, and et cetera. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Just to follow up on that, thanks, John. I really appreciate again, it's not just for council, but for the public that's watching too, so they're clear, because the public works manager will be functioning differently than the public works director did in your mind this time around. I think that needed to be clarified. And then the fact that you're going to actually assume sort of that planning director role. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, in my experience, I think I can tell you that for the past 26 years, I've taken the role of the more general public works director in various things. In a city the size of Auburn, I can tell you that the way to be a very effective city manager and accomplish the goals of the city council is to have my finger in a lot of different things. And by having a strong management core like this position, it's going to keep me in that, also in doing many of the planning functions. For the last 25 years, I've staffed the planning commission. And that, like I said, it gives me the opportunity to be involved, bring the policy direction, be able to make us be a very decisive organization when it comes to planning, when it comes to public works, that you get the answers done instead of people having to labor up to the city manager, then to the city council, then back down. We're not going to do that. So like I said, I see this as a way of really bolstering our organization, being able to hire the right types of people for what we want them to do. And I think this is going to be a very good opportunity.
And lastly, Mr. Mayor, is just that I really appreciate your bringing this to us. I appreciate that you've downgraded the position to this position of Public Works Manager. It's really, and I know my colleagues agree, that it's important to get some of that additional work off the chief, the police chief, and our fire chief too, that are just performing, double duty in these positions, and they assume them during this crises that we were under with COVID and positions, people leaving for one reason or another. And so, I really appreciate that they stepped up to the plate and they took on those double duties, but the sooner the better to remove them so that they can truly focus on the jobs that they were hired to perform. Not to say they haven't been doing a great job, they have, but I know that they can, would appreciate at least not having to wear the dual hats because they can really focus on their areas of expertise for the city and grow from that perspective. So thank you very much. That concludes my questions at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We'll move on to Councilmember Lant. He had his hand up first, I believe.
I'm going to defer to Councilwoman Riddell Harris. She actually beat me to it, so.
Oh, I'm looking in the order that they
That's
appear.
all right. That's all right. I'll defer to her first and I'll go.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Thank you. Mine is kind of a question and a comment. I'm going to play the new person card a little bit. I like that this was downgraded because it makes it more of a mid-range position. So that way there's more of an opportunity for our internal staff to be able to move up into that position. But I just wanted to make sure we're thinking about succession planning and we're thinking about people being able to move up. I know from personal experience working in a small organization where maybe that manager role only has a requirement of 2 years of supervisory experience, but if no position below it actually allows you to get any of that, you can never make that jump up. So I wanted to make sure that if we're going to be putting in these positions, that we also make sure we're thinking about the step below and allowing those people to get that supervisory experience that they need, so that way they can make that step and we can look at hiring within and not having to just always go to outside people because we don't give people the opportunity to get those minimum requirements.
Great comments. Thank you very much, Rachel. Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo my colleagues on both points. I definitely support this. I just want to bring up the point that I've raised to John. While I completely support this, and am also, like Councilwoman Downing Calvillo, incredibly grateful for the police chief's management of our public works team. We need to have some strategy in that department back. Since that director position has been vacant. But one thing I just want to remind all of us is that the span of control for our city manager is growing quite a bit. And I just want to ensure that we are not putting too much on John's shoulders. I fully trust John, as I've expressed to him, that he'll come to us when the time is right, that there needs to be an additional director to add that span of control. But I just want to make sure that we are not shifting the burden of work from staff to our police chief to our city manager. I think that adding a manager is really good, but I just want to make sure that we're keeping our eye on the ball of a director to ensure that our city manager isn't having to do everything. So, John, I support your plan. We've had some good discussions about this. I really want to see some management put in there. So I'm eager to do it, but I just want to make sure that we're not putting it all on your shoulders. So that concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councilman Berlant. And I completely agree with my fellow council members that this is a good step in the right direction. This, along with the city engineer or registered professional engineer, which is a requirement of the city to have for certain items that we act on, I think are all steps in the right direction. John, you need to let us know if this is too much, as Councilmember Berlant pointed out. So we'll leave that up to you, and I'm sure it'll be a hot topic in our later agenda item when we're talking about our strategic planning and where we're heading. So thank you all for that. Any other comments from the council on this item? Amy, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and close public comment and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that by resolution, we adopt the position of Public Works Manager and corresponding salary schedule.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Amy, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Berlant.
Aye.
Amara.
Yes.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
And Mayor Spokely.
Yes. Thank you very much. Next item is item number 9, which was pulled. It's a Administrative Service Director Employment Agreement. And I'll be honest, I've forgotten who pulled this item.
I did, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have any, for myself, questions or items for discussion of the agreement itself. I just wanted to give our city manager an opportunity to introduce us to Nathan.
I can't see. Amy, are you bringing Nathan into the meeting?
Yeah, he's on.
Very good. Mayor and Council, tonight I'm really excited to introduce Nathan Bagwell to you as our next Admin Services Director. Nathan's coming to us from the city of Elk Grove. He serves as the Senior Analyst for both Budget and Finance for the city. You look at those times when you get to steal somebody really good from another city, and this is one of those cases. I've known Jason Bierman, the city manager of Elk Grove, through different iterations of his career, and Nathan comes with a very high recommendation and the right breadth of experience. He understands the totality of the organization. He understands the mechanics of finance. He understands labor and the HR side of things. I think Nathan's actually sat on both sides of the table in labor negotiations. So I think he is bringing that experience to our city. And you look at times when you can hire the right person for the right job. And in this case, as the council mentioned in the last item, the ability to have people who you can bring together in your team to start spreading the burden, but more importantly, accomplishing the goals that the city wants to accomplish. In this case, it requires somebody who understands the big picture of what we're doing, and that's what the admin services director for us needs to do. So I don't know how to put the spotlight on Nathan at all, but Nathan, if you're there, maybe if you speak up, the council can see you, and if you want to say anything, go right ahead.
I really appreciate it, John. Very kind words, and I'll do my absolute utmost to live up to that and serve the city of Auburn with, my whole heart. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. John mentioned I'm Nathan Bagwell. I'm coming to you from the city of Oak Grove, and I can't tell you how absolutely thrilled we are as a family to be coming up and joining the Auburn family. We are actively relocating up to the Auburn area, and we couldn't be happier. I honestly, from when I first saw the job posting to the moment that I got the call, it's just been a wild ride, and we are absolutely thrilled. We've had a chance to spend some time in Auburn previously. I grew up not far from there. It feels like coming home to me. I love the town. I see why everybody loves it there, and I'm just really excited to get involved and get roll my sleeves up and get to work and serve this community to the best of my ability.
Great.
Nathan, thank you very much. I do quite a bit of work down in Elk Grove, so to Jason and to my fellow council members down in Elk Grove, this was John Dunleavy's decision to pull him away from Elk Grove, not mine or any of the council members. But Nathan, welcome to Auburn. We're excited to have you. It's going to be a lot of fun. You know this community. We all love this community. That's why we do what we do. So from the bottom of my heart, welcome. Looking forward to working with you and getting to know you better. I've seen you around City Hall. I'm down there all the time, but I'm excited to get to know you a little better as our new finance director. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments from the council?
No, Mr. Mayor, but I would be ready to make a motion when it's time.
I'd love to hear a motion.
All right, well, I'll move by resolution that we adopt the employment agreement between the city of Auburn and Nathan Bagwell.
Second it.
All righty. Motion and a second. Amy, would you mind calling roll, please?
Councilmember Berlant.
Aye.
Amara.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Stokely.
Yes. Nathan, welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
All righty, let's go ahead and jump over to public comment. This is a time provided so that the public may speak to the council on items not on the agenda. Please make your comments as brief as possible. The council cannot act on items not included on the agenda. However, the items will be automatically referred to staff. Council members shall have the option to speak for 30 seconds on items not on the agenda at this time. Do we have any council items? Let's see, Alice's hand up first, and then we'll go to Rachel.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to speak on the fact that we have 3 days of consecutive over 100-degree days. And so, I don't know if we've been working towards establishing a cooling center or opening the cooling center at the fairgrounds, but I would encourage our city manager to look into that. There are 2 99-degree days that are on the end of either of those triple-digit days. So I just want to make sure that we provide resources for our population that may be underserved and need that cooling.
Thank you very much for pointing that out, Alice. Appreciate that. Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to recognize that this month is Pride Month and to recognize the impact that our LGBTQ+ individuals have had on the history of this area and the whole country, and also the contributions that they make every day to our community. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As many of you may have read, I had opportunity to speak with Sally Dolly. She hit her 2 million cigarette butt milestone. At the same time, the community recently banded together and replaced the pickup truck that she had been driving that was really very expensive for her to continue to maintain. She still has the truck, but some local folks were able to raise some money, and we actually had a local auto repair shop that donated a van for her. So she was very appreciative of the community's support. And I will tell you, she is very much looking forward to our return, to at least a hybrid return, but where she can come to the council meetings once again and update us on a biweekly of her community service project and how many cigarette butts. And I will tell you, because she says it at all the previous meetings, but if you've forgotten, she literally does tell babies, because she looked at my baby and said, "Don't grow up and be a smoker. Throw your cigarette butts away." I sure hope my child won't be a smoker, but I hope that regardless, he'll throw all of his litter away. So with that, I just wanted to report out on her accomplishment and her return to our city council. John has never met Sally Dolly at our city council meeting, so it'll be good to have some of our new faces get to see Sally.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Yes, I certainly miss her updates and miss her in our council chambers and our council chambers. So looking forward to getting back to the in-person thing. Any other comments from the council? I will just briefly mention, because I was out of town fetching my youngest daughter from college for the summer up in Oregon, that there was a ceremony for the Forgotten Soldier program at the Armed Forces Pavilion. I think many of the council members showed up for that. Thank you all for showing up. I think Vice Mayor Amara was able to say a few words, although I wasn't there and I didn't confirm with her, but I see her nodding. So
yes.
Great organization, doing a lot for our veterans who need help and certainly deserve our support. So thank you, Donna Arts, for your undying support for our soldiers and veterans in that regard. So I just wanted to mention that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our public hearing items. First item up.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we did have a public comment that came in. Our city clerk had sent it to us. Is that this is the appropriate time for that one, Amy?
Yes.
It is. I'm sorry, I forgot to check in with her. I was worse, but thank you for grabbing me. Amy, I think we did have at least one public comment come in.
Yeah, we have 2 public comments for you tonight. Both have been provided to the council ahead of time and are available in my office for review. One is a written comment and the other one is audio, a voicemail that was left.
Thank you.
Tom Dwelly from Auburn. I attended cruise night Friday night, the 11th. It was a big success. One huge hiccup. Failure to change to vertical parking until 4:30 led to a big problem with a totally full street of cars being forced now to convert from diagonal to vertical, that is perpendicular parking, was terrible. Big scramble with the street totally packed with people is dangerous. Cars were idling up and down in between lines, and everybody was moving among the people. Moving the air in the narrow street was unbreathable. It reminded me of Athens, Greece. Coordination among the group was dreadful. They're reluctant to change to vertical parking until 5 p.m. When many of the businesses close. The bitching store owners is the problem. Please consider allowing them to change at noon. Thank you, Tom. Tom Glilly, Flyers Manager.
And that completes public comment.
Just for clarification, that first public comment was on the agenda item that was pulled. So that's why it may be something.
Yes, related to a former item number 12.
Great. Thank you very much.
Oakley?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have one comment, if I can.
Yeah, please.
And it's just a letter that I'm not sure everybody received, but I received from Rhonda Guess and her husband. They, probably many of you have seen them. They go up and down Auburn Folsom Road. He's in a wheelchair, and his wife, and they pick up trash along Auburn Folsom. And they just wanted to advise the council that they are physically unable to be as proactive as they used to be, and they were hoping to get started and pick it up again, and they wanted to know if they can put trash into bags or have a community pickup day. And I'm working with them on that, but I just wanted to bring you to your attention that we have some wonderful Auburn citizens who are helping with the trash on Auburn Folsom.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I appreciate that. Yes, I've certainly seen them walking and riding. I think, is he the one with the Harley Davidson looking? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Councilman Berlant, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I'll make this a comment and not a response to that, but the city manager and I have had a discussion about the litter along Auburn Folsom, and we tried to loop it into Auburn Community Service Day, which you probably haven't heard about because we ended up, for a number of reasons, moving it to later in the year. But we've had some discussion about possibly trying to pair in a little bit of cleanup work because the email that the guest has sent was not the first one. And despite our city manager volunteering to go out there with the little pickers and do it himself, which he did offer, but again, back to too much work that he is doing, I think it's probably better for us to find a community service day opportunity. And so I'll be keeping you in the loop as the steering committee of the community service day when that gets labeled, whether or not it helps the immediate issue the guest has brought forward. But just wanted to at least let you know that that is part of the discussions we've been having.
Good. Let's get together. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the council? All right, we'll go ahead and jump over to our public hearing item, and that is the 2021-22 sewer assessment to be placed on the Placer County tax roll. And we'll jump to who's handling this item.
But Mayor and Council, let me do it if I can, and I know that I've got some help if you have any questions. As the council is aware, we run Enterprise, which is our sewer system. The way that we do the billing here is through putting the bills on the tax roll. In order for us to put things as a property assessment, it requires that the city council hold the public hearing authorizing that the item is then presented to Placer County and the assessor's office for collection with the 2021-2022 tax collection. So staff is recommending that you conduct a public hearing and then adopt a resolution authorizing the levying of the sewer service charges on the upcoming tax roll.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And I will point out for the citizens listening that there is no proposed rate increase at this time. So for this upcoming fiscal year, I'll turn it over to the council. Does anyone have comments or questions for, I see Councilwoman Don Calvillo with her hand up.
Yes, and it is related, but thank you very much for bringing this item. I just wondered, what is the flat rate for residential sewer hookup these days, John? Do you have that number?
Let me kick that over either April or Benj will probably. No, let's put April on the spot, and April, why don't you talk about sewer charges?
It's in the packet, Alice. It's 78.83 per.
No, the hookup for new
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I was asking about so it's a related item, but I was just wondering what it costs to have a new sewer hookup these days.
Yes.
Just impressed that, Mr. Mayor, you can just rattle that number right off your head, though.
Well, that's his work.
There was a 1 cent
maybe
discrepancy.
wrong number, but still.
There was a 1 cent discrepancy in the report to the actual fee code, which I wasn't going to bring up, but yes. April, were you?
Okay. Yes, I'm here. I'm not sure what the connection fees are. I only do the annual tax billing and the new single family dwelling unit tax billing. So that's probably a question that we would need to ask the building department for.
You can get that for me later. I just, when I was looking at this item, that just came up to, came up to me. I know that, here in Roby Point, even though we're in the city limits, we don't have connectivity to the sewer. We're all on septic tanks out here. So that's just been something we've kind of talked about in the past. I just was wondering what that new sewer hookup cost was for residential.
I recall from previous council meetings that it's multiple thousands of dollars. So
yes, I think it used to be like 10,000, Matt. I mean, this is 20 years ago. That's why I just thought I would ask, since we were talking about sewer and so. But if we don't have that information right now, then feel free to send me an email. I didn't ask it in advance, so kind of caught folks off guard. Sorry about that.
Mayor and council, by the city manager's report, I will have that answer.
Oh, all right.
There we go.
John's laid it down. Let's see what happens here. Any other questions from the council? All right, seeing none, I'll just point out that we went through, right after I got on council for my first term, a 5-year rate increase program. That's now since come and gone. And given all of the costs that we've seen in previous council meetings related to improvements that we're required to do out at the sewer treatment plant for the city of Auburn, I would think that there might be some future looks at rates. Obviously, I hope that we don't increase rates, but between the pump station upgrades that we've been doing on a fairly regular basis and the improvements out at the wastewater treatment plant and the increased costs of maintaining our sewer infrastructure, all the sewer lines in the streets, I think that's probably something we'll be seeing in the future. Again, I'm not saying that we're going to raise rates, because I think the enterprise fund is fairly well funded. But sorry about the clock. But we'll keep that in mind for all of those folks who might be listening, because I know some folks are on fixed incomes, and any little adjustments in fees are a big deal, and I completely understand that. But we have not done a rate increase this year, but I think we need to do some analysis to determine whether or not in future years we need to look at adjustments to make sure the enterprise fund is soluble. So with that, I see Councilmember. John, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, actually, I have the number. It's $8,615 per unit for a connection fee. So it is very healthy. To answer your question about a review, I can tell you in the upcoming budget, we do have in the overall budget that we will be looking at the various fees. And when it comes to enterprise fees, realize that it is required by law that we have to regularly review all of our fees, which go through the gamut of what we charge people. Prop 218 mandates that we have to keep our fees current, and that will be something that we will go through. Like as the mayor pointed out, you've got the connection fee is one thing, but the annual service fee of $78 is something that we have to review to make sure that we are charging the right rate. So,
and just to follow up on that, for those of you who are watching this meeting and care to take a look, the packet that we had for this agenda item actually talks about different fees. Some of you may say $78 a month. That's not even close to what I'm paying. I'm paying much more. The rates are based on service to your residential, location. So if you've got one pump station serving you, you pay a little bit of an escalator. If you've got two pump stations, it's a little more. And believe it or not, we have some areas in the city due to the hilly terrain that we have where we've got 3 pump stations that have to get the sewer to a gravity sewer to take it out to our wastewater treatment plant. So take a look at that rate schedule that's at the back of the packet for this item if you're interested in seeing what those escalators are. Councilman Berlin, I saw your hand up for a moment. Did your question get answered?
No, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment in the same vein of yours that, a lot of work went into both from prior city councils and staff to ensure that, we have a strong, robust plan of having a sewer plant and the infrastructure that meets all of the state requirements. And I think even this council, we've constantly talked about the changes the state has in its guidelines. And so for us to continue to be able to maintain at a plant that is an award-winning plant, but also ensuring that our fees are not just reasonable, obviously, as John mentioned, have to collect the appropriate amount for what the expenses are. But I'm just really appreciative of staff being able to ensure that we are doing our best to live within our means and to keep a plant at tip-top shape that's meeting all the state requirements. It is exporting water that's cleaner than water that comes into the ravine before it enters Auburn, all at a very reasonable rate. And so I'm really excited that this year's fees are again able to maintain without any increase. But like you said, we need to constantly look at what additional environmental requirements may come down the pike that we need to ensure that we can fund through the appropriate fees for service. So just wanted to acknowledge the city councils ahead of us, the staff from the past, because I know a lot of energy has gone into keeping us in a balanced fiscal place for these for our sewer fund, but also to have an award-winning plant should never go unrecognized. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you for bringing that up, Daniel. I completely agree with you. Any other comments from the council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that reminded me, Councilman Berlant's comments reminded me right before I got on the council, when we had dear Annabelle McCord sitting on the city council. When she left, one of her outgoing gifts to the council at that time was a big bag of cash, so to speak, to help resolve our issues at the sewer water treatment plant, because they were so expensive and it was just something that was so grueling. And my initial years on the city council back from 1998 to 2004, probably 3 around there were just increases, and it was just such a huge effort, and we really have come a long way. So I do appreciate Councilman Berlant's comment, because there was a lot of work. This has been such a 20 plus years. And to say that we have no increase this year is great. I'm pleased to see that. I know we have to continuously update our fees to ensure that we do collect sufficient amount to ensure that we can operate sustainably, but we really have come a long way, and it's good to be able to recognize the councils and staff in the past that have really done a lot of that heavy lifting for us. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the council? Seeing none. Amy, any public comment on this item?
I did not receive any. I just double checked live as well, and I have not received public comment.
And I saw John wave his hand there. John, you?
Because this is an assessment, I think you need to open the public hearing, request public comment, and then close it, just so the city attorney doesn't get mad.
Yeah.
So formally, Amy, I'll go ahead and open public comment. Do we have any public comment, Amy, in the last 15 seconds?
I have no public comment for this item.
Okay. And John, I appreciate the formality. Obviously, this is an important thing. We want to make sure that we're not short-circuiting any requirements. So hearing no public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period and bring it back to the council for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will go ahead and make a motion that we authorize the levying of the sewer service charge for fiscal year 21-22 to be placed on the County of Placer tax roll.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from council? Seeing none, Amy, would you mind please calling the roll call vote?
Councilmember Berlant.
Aye.
Amara.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
And Mayor Spokley.
Yes. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Next up is under council business is item number 16, Placer County Mosquito and Vector Control District Informational Report. I see folks popping in, Megan and Joel.
Yeah, I have two representatives here from the Placer County Mosquito Vector Control District that will be providing the council the annual report on their activities.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight. I think Joel is on with me as well.
Yep.
Just confirming everyone could see our presentation.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Megan Lovano. I'm the Public Information Officer at the Placer Mosquito and Vector Control District. I'm joined by Joel Bettner, our District Manager. Thanks for having us. Before we get started into just our annual mosquito update, I wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Amaro, who sits on our Board of Trustees. We have meetings every third Monday of the month, and she oversees our activities, and we are thankful for her to be sitting on our Board of Trustees. So good to see you, and thank you for your work.
Hey, Megan, can you do us all a favor and actually enter into presentation mode?
Oh, yes, definitely.
So we don't see, so it's bigger for me. Thank you very much.
Got it.
Perfect.
Great. So I'm just going to jump in, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So we always like to just go over the basics of our district, since we're a little bit different than other public agencies. We're an independent, non-enterprise special district in Northern California, one of the youngest in the county. We're governed by California mosquito control and vector law, and we have a 7-member board of trustees and 22 full-time staff, and then we hire annual seasonal employees. So we are currently still hiring for the season right now. So our mission is to effectively and efficiently manage the risks from vectors and vector-borne disease in order to protect public health and quality of life in Placer County. This is a map of our service area, the entire county. So this just goes over the different vectors and vector-borne diseases we deal with primarily in different areas of the county. So down in the Roseville area, West Placer area, we're going to be dealing with mosquitoes and West Nile virus primarily. As we go into the Mid Placer area where Auburn is, we're dealing with mosquitoes, not as much West Nile virus, and then ticks and Lyme disease. And then in East Placer, we're going to be dealing with yellow jackets and rodents. So what we do, so everything we do, we follow an integrated vector management approach, which is a decision-making approach. And then all of our programming falls beneath that decision-making process. So we do vector and disease surveillance, chemical control, biological and physical control. That's when you hear about our mosquito fish program, community outreach, which is what I oversee, technology and innovation, where our drone program falls in, and then applied research. So we're doing everything we can possible to be as efficient and as effective as possible. And these are just some photos of our staff at work. So we haven't seen you since 2020 or 20, yeah, it was 2020, I think one of our last presentations, but I thought I'd go over some of our activities from last year. So we did 13 drone applications to treat larval mosquitoes, which is exciting. And Joel will talk about our drone program in a second. We had 58 positive West samples last year. 2 good news requests look Aedes aegypti larval mosquitoes adult in 2019, and we did not detect them in 2020. So all of the surrounding counties last year did have their first detections, and we're anticipating that we're going to detect this mosquito this year. Now, the importance of this mosquito is that they have the ability to transmit diseases like Zika, chikungunya, dengue, and yellow fever. So we're concerned about them. SAC-YOLO has identified them this year already nearby. So we are doing our enhanced surveillance program and looking for these mosquitoes so we could try to eradicate them as quickly as possible. In addition to those activities, we hired 4 seasonal staff members, and then we also did 57 aerial and ground-based larvicide and adulticide treatments. So while we weren't out in the community doing presentations and events last year, we did focus a lot of our efforts on making some of the stuff we do digitally better or changing some of our programming into digital programming. So we redid our website. It's a lot more user-friendly now. We made it so that anyone from the public who wants to submit a service request can easily do it through 2 clicks. So the whole system just works a lot better. We also took our school outreach program that's been in existence for almost 10 years and made it into a digital version. So this is now available to the public, where we were just presenting at schools throughout the county for quite a while. So we're excited about that, and we were able to add different topics. So it's not just about the good bugs and the bad bugs. We're actually talking to kids about heartworm and pets, ticks, and other topics. We also took some more complicated specific species information, how aerial and adult or aerial larviciding and adulticiding works, and broke it down into whiteboard style videos. We get a lot of questions and took kind of our frequently asked questions and made them into more easily digestible videos so that people can understand more of what we do and more of what we deal with. And then this is a slide we put together since we get calls about all sorts of things at our district. So this kind of goes over the different county resources and broke it down as to who do you call for certain things. So at our district, you call us for the surveillance and control of mosquitoes, ticks, and yellow jackets. Placer County Animal Services is who you contact for lost dogs, cats, dead animals, and nuisance wildlife. Placer County Public Health is for your communicable diseases in humans. And then private pest control is who will handle spiders, cockroaches, rodents, and then anything inside your home. Great.
All right.
Joel is going to take over.
Thanks, Megan, and thank you, Council, for having us tonight. I just want to briefly go over some of the vectors that we deal with. So our focus is really on risk to people. So risk includes biting, but it most importantly includes transmission of disease. So we have over 30 different species that have the capability of carrying a half a dozen different diseases throughout the county. It's really important, and I think one of our roles is to identify where the mosquitoes are and what kind they are, what diseases are present, and then convey that information to the public so they can protect themselves as well as inform our operations so we can keep the public as safe as possible. Next slide. Great. So there's, we really look at the disease risk prevention effort as a partnership with the public. So the district responsibilities being monitoring the vectors and diseases in the environment. And I do want to just reinforce that among all of the communicable diseases, of which we are all more familiar today than we were a year ago, vector-borne diseases are the only ones we do not have to wait for people to get sick to know about. We can detect this West Nile virus and other vector-borne disease in the environment and take proactive steps to limit that risk. And that's what we try to do each and every day relative to West Nile virus and mosquitoes, and even invasive mosquitoes that have the potential of vectoring new diseases that are not yet circulating in the county. We manage those populations through integrated vector management, as Megan mentioned, and we really pride ourselves in making science-based decisions. So we take information that we see and make those decisions based on the available tools. And Megan mentioned the drone program and some of our innovative programs. Those are really efforts to, as we learn more and as we get better at identifying when and where mosquitoes that are infected are, we have to adapt our tools to make it so we're able to actually react and target those places most effectively. It doesn't help if we know where they are but can't do anything about it, right? So throughout our the years that we've been doing this, we really try to kind of push the envelope a little bit and get better at what we're doing. So that's what we do. The public responsibilities, and a lot of this is education through outreach, is to encourage folks to defend themselves by wearing repellent, EPA registered repellents, protective clothing, maintaining their properties, whether that's dumping and draining water or reporting standing water or unmaintained swimming pools in their neighborhood, or clearing brush and grass to minimize ticks, things like that. And then using the district as a resource. So like Megan said, we get tons of questions, mostly about things that are pertinent to us, but sometimes things that are not. And we do our very best to get those answers or direct folks to the places where they need to go. And I think I have to commend Megan and other staff who spent a lot of time trying to pull those resources together and did a very nice job at improving our website and other resources for the public. Next slide. Okay, so this is what everyone always asks me. So how does mosquitoes look like this year? So basically, if you look at the graph below, what you see is on top is a graph of mosquito abundance. This is the species Culex tarsalis, which is the one that's primarily responsible for West Nile transmission, by week from 2018 to the left, 2019, 2020, and 2021 as you move to the right. So as you can see, the abundance peaks in the middle of the summer, usually around the end of July to August. And we see that pretty consistently. You look back at 2018 and it peaked really high compared to, say, last year, which was a little more flat. And then you look at the graph below, and over on the left, 2018 shows a high mountain of red. That is the amount of West Nile positive mosquitoes and birds that we detected. So the more red, the more West Nile infected creatures are out there. The less red, the less so. So what we've seen here is 2018 was really bad. A lot of mosquitoes, a lot of West Nile. 2019 and 2020 weren't quite as bad from the West Nile perspective. This year, what's going to happen? Well, my prediction is that based on drought conditions and a very mild winter, we're going to look a lot like 2018. That's the last time we had kind of drought-like conditions, similar to what we're seeing this year. We are tracking about a month early in the mosquito season, meaning normally we would have about another month before we really start seeing that big peak of mosquito activity growth. That's very related to temperature. And since we've had a couple of weeks of 100 plus, and we're looking at another one this week, we're looking like that we're going to probably have a lot of mosquitoes. So today we started our aerial larviciding program out in the agricultural areas in Western Placer. That does in fact affect Auburn, because what we see is the bulk of the Culex tarsalis mosquitoes grow in those irrigated fields, and then they start moving and pushing to the east. We have in the past had West Nile as far east as Auburn, hasn't really gone past there. And that's a real challenge for us. The terrain and how the water works in the Auburn area is very, very challenging in terms of trying to do any treatment. So what we do is we have technicians that go out and really try to be proactive, identify that standing water, treat that standing water to eliminate the mosquitoes when they're larvae, so they don't even have the opportunity to become adults. And we watch that very, very closely. As we get towards later in the summer, especially into July and August, we will start issuing notices for wide area treatments, and we may even issue some notices of enhanced risk of mosquito-borne disease. So we've done that in the past where we see these big spikes of mosquitoes and lots of West Nile, and it's just kind of giving folks a little heads up that, you know, if you weren't really paying attention to wearing repellent and staying inside during the dawn and dusk times, you really need to do it now. And then usually our spray missions come after that. So a lot of people are obviously concerned about some of our control measures. We have a lot of that information on our website. And what I tell folks is, you know, we pride ourselves in being able to detect samples of mosquitoes out in the field and come back and 24 hours later know if they were positive or not, and make a very good, timely, science-based control decision and get treatment out and to deal with the smallest area as possible. And we think that's very, very effective. So we tell folks when we're going to do those sorts of operations as soon as we know. And literally, it's about 15 minutes after we make the decision, Megan's sending out emails to notify people on our spray list. So definitely the best way to get information is to sign up on our email lists. We have a general newsletter one, and we have one that notifies people of our wide area spray missions. And you can find that on our website, placermosquito.org. And you can turn it on and turn it off whenever you like. We sometimes get people who want to get them, and then they say, well, I don't really want to get them anymore. They turn off, and that's totally fine. It's super easy to do. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Joel, thank you very much. And Megan, for the presentation, very much appreciate it. I've got a couple of really quick questions. You mentioned some diseases that, at least for me, you know, transmissible diseases that seem pretty scary. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Things like Zika and
chikungunya, dengue fever,
all of those, and yellow fever. There's not been any cases found in Placer County of those diseases, right? These are just the mosquitoes that are capable of transmitting these diseases.
Generally, that is correct. The one thing we don't know very well is, and especially as people start to travel again, there are a number of quite a few imported cases. So someone will go on vacation, say to Thailand, and get bit by a mosquito and come back home and come down with dengue. Now, that's generally not a community-wide health problem. Certainly, it's a health problem for that individual. But if they come back and their community now has this invasive mosquito established, now there is a potential for that mosquito to bite that person and then go bite their neighbor. It's very low, but that's what we're trying to battle. But you're absolutely right. There is no locally transmitted scary diseases other than West Nile virus currently.
Which is scary enough, right? With all
scary
of the
enough, absolutely.
Health issues associated with that disease.
Exactly.
And the other question I had, and then I'll turn it over to my fellow council members, is related to the drought slides that you had, and that kind of confused me a little bit, because obviously we're in a pretty significant low rain event season, and based on that, we're thinking that the vector control concerns are going to spike based on those tables that you showed us?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question. So what happens is drought means less water, not no water, right? So there will be fewer areas that have water suitable for mosquito development. So what happens is the mosquitoes and the birds both congregate around fewer water sources and thereby are in more contact with each other, and the transmission between mosquito and bird and back and forth increases. So we may actually have fewer mosquitoes, but the problem is the percentage of mosquitoes that may have West Nile tends to go up during drought times. And so from a risk standpoint, it's a higher risk, even though there may be fewer mosquitoes. And honestly, we don't measure fewer mosquitoes. They're still, mosquitoes are super good at taking advantage of any water that's available. And as good as we are at trying to prevent it, we're not perfect. So that's the issue with drought, is that if it were truly no water, then you're absolutely right. We wouldn't have a problem. But there is some water, and it kind of congregates everything together and causes the disease transmission to happen more.
That makes sense, Joel.
Yep.
Thank
Good
you for that
question.
explanation. And then I guess my final question for our community members, obviously we hear about this every year, and we're told to pour out any standing water that you've got and keep those dry this time of season.
Mm-hmm.
What other messages do you want to tell our citizens to help stem the population of mosquitoes and these vector creating insects that we have in our community? Is it just eliminate standing water? Is it use bug repellent? What other messages might you share with us to keep our properties, our neighbors, and our community safe?
Those are the main ones. And I guess I would say, especially the way the world is now, is, we're doing our very best. We have your back. We want people to have an awareness of it and take the steps that they can, but it's not something that people need to freak out about, right? So wearing repellent, wear mosquito repellent, make sure that repellent is EPA registered. There's information on what that exactly means on our website, and we may even have some very timely social media and other information coming out in the following months. That's probably number one. Number two is manage the water on your property. So the stuff that you can change, please change it. So don't have that water standing around for more than 3 days is the rule of thumb. So that includes pet dishes, the little drip pans for your potted plants, any of those things. Just dump them out, switch the water, and you're doing your part. We get a lot of calls of people, and this is probably more like during the winter. It's like, oh, over on the corner of this street and that street, there's a bunch of water. We appreciate that, but in reality, we probably know about it already. We have cataloged some 80,000 sources that our techs sort and prioritize and go through and try to stay on top of it. That's great. But really, if folks take care of their own backyards, the places that aren't easy for us to see when we're driving around, that's really the biggest help. And then if there's questions, just jump on our website, send us a problem request, or even give us a call, and we'd be happy to address any of those issues.
Thank you very much, Joel. Appreciate your presentation. We do have questions, so I'll first turn it over to Vice Mayor Morrow for her questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel and Megan. I really appreciate your presentation. It was a great presentation, and I appreciate all you do. And I think your office is something that no one really appreciates until there's a problem, and you are there to prevent problems. So I do appreciate all that you do. I especially appreciate the education part. You have a drone. Opportunity there that you've been working on in the past year, I know, and you do really just a great job for all of us. And I'm not going to put you on the spot, but one thing, I think a lot of the questions were about mosquitoes, but then there's the Lyme tick. Do you know in the past year, have there been Placer County residents who've contracted Lyme from ticks around here?
That's a good question. So the first part of that question is absolutely yes. In Placer County, we have ticks that carry Lyme disease. The dangerous or the most risky period for picking up Lyme disease is fall and spring. especially when the very small nymphal ticks are out. We do fairly comprehensive tick surveillance and testing. We don't do tick control because that is really, it's very difficult when it's just out in the wild on trails and such. We're not going to go spray down ticks because we'd end up killing a whole bunch of other stuff that it doesn't work that way. But in terms of your second part of your question, have people in Placer County, I don't know that off the top of my head, partly and actually mostly because we don't deal with human cases. We're mainly dealing with the environmental monitoring and prevention. We could easily figure that out. And I'm going to guess that there have been. But what I can tell you is our tick incidence, our Lyme incidence in ticks hovers around 2%. So 2% of all the ticks that are out there have Lyme or a Lyme-like pathogen in it. Whether or not that will transmit to a person is really up to the person. How long was the tick attached, all of that sort of stuff. And so we monitor for deviations from that 2%. So if we were to say, find a particular trail that we monitor, we monitor 12 sites every month from about April to October. I'm sorry, except for the summertime. So anyway, spring and fall. And if we were to find incidence rates of Lyme disease that say were 3 or 4%, we would tell folks about that. We would put out some information and reinforce folks to, either avoid the area or to take extra precautions on how to protect themselves. We are tracking the issues that you will see in the media related to ticks in the Northeast and the northern parts of the US, like Michigan. They're having a huge tick explosion, and with it, some very, very serious diseases. We're happy to report those have not made it here, but we are watching that, and we're looking at. I've talked to colleagues in Massachusetts and in New Jersey where they've got some serious issues. So we're gonna keep an eye on that and make sure that doesn't come here if we could at all help it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And just the last kind of question, I think you've answered it, but my question was kind of on the line what Mayor Spokley asked. With the increase of individuals who use our canyons and come in from everywhere on the weekends and even during the week in the summer, does that increase your job and does it put us at greater risk for invasive species that are coming in?
Yeah. So anytime you have people coming from one area to another, you run the risk of moving critters around. So I would say, yeah, I mean, Placer County is primed to have invasive mosquitoes or some new tick or some weed or something like that, just because there's so many people running back and forth. We are concerned about things coming over from Nevada, especially West Nile. So we trap and test mosquitoes up in Tahoe, even though it's way too high for West Nile to transmit there. We just want to see if we're catching anything that's coming over the mountains. In terms of ticks, not really. For ticks, again, it's a different situation. Folks need to be more responsible for their own proactive measures, protective measures. So we really encourage folks to do regular tick checks. In the past, and actually still, we will ID a tick. If someone wants us to ID a tick that they pulled off themselves or their dog or found crawling on their patio or whatever, they can bring it in or they can snap a picture, send it to us, and we'll do our best to tell them what it is. But we do not test ticks from people. We only test the ticks we collect. And that's really because knowing a tick is positive or not really is, I would say it's distracting to understanding what the physical health issue is for the individual. So we really encourage those folks to go see their doctor and work out the illness issues with them. And if they really, really are insistent and want to get a tick tested for disease, we do refer folks to a University of Massachusetts, I believe. They can send their tick off there. They're set up to accept ticks, do testing. I think it costs about $20 and they can get the results, but we don't do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor Spokley.
Thank you very much. I see Councilwoman Don Calvillo had her hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. I really appreciate the level of expertise you had, the consumer update, the consumer outreach, the education outreach that you provide to folks as well. I had an opportunity to work with our local districts when I was working for Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger when we were dealing with some West Nile issues. And that, I will tell you, it's, you know, the aerial spraying and things of that nature and having to take action right away. You know, there's a lot of different balls in the air. So thank you very much for that. I did have just a couple of questions. I know that from time to time, you'll see on social media and other venues that folks are concerned about the aerial spraying. And I know that you touched upon this and you mentioned that, you know, the aerial spraying that you're doing is really out there in Western Placer County, where we have our agricultural centers and so forth. So you're not doing aerial spraying here, like over Auburn, for example, correct?
Correct. We have not found the need to do that. We don't have the conditions of positive mosquitoes and the risk levels that require that sort of a treatment.
And because I know, like I said, I'll hear people say, oh, they're doing spraying, and you know, I know that the bulk of your activities again are in Western Placer County. But you know, just for the purposes of folks that are watching today, it's important to convey that. And I know that you also have a pretty extensive notification process for when you do those aerial sprayings to let people know so they can bring their pets in and things of that nature. And the bulk of your spraying does occur at night. Is that correct?
So let me just clarify a few things. we do aerial spraying basically 3 different ways. We do in the evening for adult mosquitoes. That's with a big plane, 300 feet in the dark, and it kind of uses the wind and stuff to get that application right into the target area. And there's some fairly sophisticated avionics and stuff to target that. That we do in Western Placer because that's where we get large numbers of infected mosquitoes around people. Okay, we've never had to do that, and we don't anticipate needing to do that in Auburn. We also do aerial spraying in the daytime over rice fields or wetlands in Western Placer. And it's like a crop duster, a small plane down close to the ground. And we use that to apply materials into the water to prevent the adult mosquitoes from coming out. So it kills the larvae. We don't do that in Auburn because you don't have rice fields or wetlands, and you have mountains, which the planes don't like those things, right? The third way is we use our drone. And so we have not used it in Auburn yet, but we are looking at places like Auburn where we have maybe a small hot spot of infected mosquitoes, and we want to get into one of those like really, you know, in Auburn, there's lots of very like wooded, dense little, you know, corners that have a lot of marshiness. We want to get in there, and currently we send our people in there with backpack sprayers and things like that. It's time consuming and there's safety issues. So we're trying to use the drone. We did do a demonstration application of this in Squaw Valley this spring. And we found that it worked extremely well. And we actually had a lesser environmental footprint because literally 7 people didn't have to walk through the wetland. So that was really good. And we can look forward to those sorts of things in the future. The other type of adulticide treatments we do are very, very localized. And in and around Auburn, we will sometimes do that in very isolated areas, or not isolated, but specific areas like certain properties that have an abundance of mosquitoes that are really causing problems for people. We will go and just spray one, you know, the backyard or things like that. But as far as like wide spraying, that's something we haven't had to do, and we hope we don't have to do in Auburn. And unfortunately, that is something we have to do to keep people safe down in other places in Placer County.
Thank you for just that clarification, because I think that, you know, sometimes folks get a little nervous about that. And then again, just really talking about the fact that you do some advanced notification, even for the folks that are in Western Placer County of the spraying activity. And it's amazing how localized and specific you can be. You know, until I really kind of got involved in it when I worked in the governor's office, I had no idea the technology, and this is years ago. I'm sure it's even, blown up more, but you can really pinpoint, and you take all those different conditions, the atmospheric conditions into consideration when and how to spray, and to ensure that it's really hitting its specific target, not just blowing all over, So it's the science behind it is really very interesting. I know that we're trying to work towards, sort of a less toxic spray. Obviously, the purpose is to annihilate the mosquito or to stop the growth or what have you. But I know that there are efforts at the state and federal level too, to take a look at what is actually being utilized in those sprays. So thank you for your continued work in that effort as well, as we move forward to a more sustainable process. Also, now mosquito fish, because I know that folks oftentimes will ask about mosquito fish. And do you still have that program where if you have a horse trough or, a pond, you may have a pond in your backyard that you can't obviously drain it on a regular basis, but you can call and get fish. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yep. So again, this goes back to Mayor Spokley's comment about what can people do is if you have water features, you have ponds, you have horse troughs, you have things of that sort, just report them. Just basically get on our website, submit a problem report standing water saying, just concerned that, that these might create mosquitoes. A technician will come out, inspect the area, and if it's appropriate, we'll place fish in there. So some people during COVID, we had to kind of pull back on some of our normal times of year when we were putting fish out, just because we wanted to minimize people contact. And I think in some places people may have misunderstood that as we're not handing out fish anymore. That's really not the case. We utilize the directions to my staff is that go do an assessment of the area just like you would for anything else. And if fish are appropriate, then they use fish and fish are available. We try to place fish earlier in the season, just because then they have a better chance of surviving. Some places, fish just take really well, and we never have to put fish again. I mean, they overwinter and they're thriving, and there's no mosquitoes, and that's great. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So
I think that's an important program to maybe even highlight more. I mean, obviously, we don't have a lot of horse properties in the city limits, but we do have a few. But you do have, ponds and water features and things of that nature. And, the fish are a great way to help reduce those mosquitoes and the larvae. And it's a environmentally friendly solution, So
for the most part, we do try to keep them out of natural waterways because they're not.
Yes, yeah, but if you have, an oversized fountain or like I said, the troughs for, if we have the goats that are out eating the, the dried grass and so forth. So in any event, so thank you very much, and that concludes my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So thank you both for coming today.
I do want to add, at this time of year, we get a majority of our calls about our mosquito fish program. So I actually sent out a video about the program on Nextdoor to all of the county. So hopefully some residents will be calling in or reporting a problem on our website to get mosquito fish. And we have another video on aerial larvicide and adulticiding also that kind of breaks down how the different treatments work.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Any other questions from the council? Amy, do we have any questions from the public on this item?
We do not.
Okay. Joel, Megan, thank you very much for your update. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you guys again next year. Keep doing what you guys do. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, next up is me finding my agenda. Next up is our item number 17, our Homeless Transient Strategic Plan 2021 Quarterly Update. I see Chief Canan has already jumped on the call. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Ryan Canan, your Chief of Police. So today I'll be giving you just a quick update on our strategic plan that we put together to manage our homeless and transient issues within the city of Auburn. I will share my screen momentarily. And maybe not. How do we go? Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Awesome.
I'm seeing side notes, which makes the presentation pretty small. Is there a way to remove the side notes there, Ryan?
Let's see. So I have two screens, so now it just gave me both my screens. So let's see.
There it is. Perfect.
Awesome.
For me, hopefully it is for everybody else.
Hopefully for everybody else, it's working. So it's actually giving me my displays. So it's actually my presentations on both sides. So I'll kick it off. So again, today is our just a quick update where we are in 2021. This will be a year-to-date comparison with some data from 2020 as well. So I'll kick it off. So for those viewers that haven't seen this before, in 2019, we kicked off a three-year strategic plan with two goals in mind. One was to identify and reduce the number of chronic homeless in the city of Auburn. And we did two different definitions. One was using the Marvitz study, which defines the chronic homeless as a person who has been homeless more than one straight year, have had 4 homeless episodes in 3 years, or a homeless person with a disabling condition. In addition to those 3 definitions, we actually added our own, which was a person contacted 4 months during a rolling 12-month period. So we took these 2 definitions and now began tracking the number of chronic homeless with the goal of reducing that by 10%. As well as our nuisance type calls, which we have there: camping, loitering, panhandling, trespassing, and suspicious activity. We're able to get an overview snapshot of what it looked like in 2019, and then had a goal to reduce that number as well by the end of this 3-year strategic plan. And we put together our community action team to focus on the homeless in partnership with obviously Health and Human Services and other city partners here, using that problem-oriented policing approach to bring in resources and to address our homeless and transient needs. So objective 1, we have here in 2020, we identified 32 chronic homeless within the city. We were able to reduce that from 2019, but year-to-date comparison now shows another decrease. So we've decreased our numbers from 32 to 28, which is 13%. One of the things I'd kind of highlight, and for the council last minute update, was I think I had on there 4 additional individuals. I believe we actually, based on data that just came in today, shows potentially 8 additional individuals that are on our list are on there as a result of our own definition, which requires them to stay on there for those 4 contacts over a 12-month period. But based on the Marvitz study and based on our partners at Health and Human Services, we'd actually see another reduction of 8. So based on those definitions, we could potentially be down to 20 chronic homeless within the city of Auburn. Our approach is, ultimate goal is to have each individual receive the services they need. As we know, homelessness in itself is not a crime, but it does become an issue within our community. And the big part of it is making sure that those who need mental health and or drug-related dependency issues get the help that they need. And obviously, we're not the experts in that. So this is where our partnerships through Health and Human Services and other folks within our community play a huge role in what it is that we're doing on a daily basis out here. One of the things too, with our new system, we actually broke down the city into reporting districts. As you can see here, we did some data analysis to show our biggest hotspot as it relates to homelessness within the city. Here is reporting district 12. It's one of the largest districts we have. Kind of the shell of it starts at about 49 Nevada Street, Marguerite Mine area, Enterprise, I-80. It actually has our shopping centers and our train stations. So the larger areas where homeless and transients congregate. And as a result, we end up with a larger share of issues within this reporting district. So this will be the district that we focus on as we move forward with our own internal crime reduction model that we'll be rolling out shortly. Here's some more data. This is objective 2. These are the 5 areas that we were trying to reduce the number of calls for service. The reason we picked these ones again was these are typically the call types that come into us from our community. So these were community generated calls for service. And as you can see, I'm just going down the slide, camping is a 59% reduction, loitering, we've seen the increase by about 46%. And for us, I mentioned it before in a number of the presentations, is small numbers do have big percentage increases. So a 46% increase for us is actually just a 12 calls for service over where we were year to date. Panhandling is down 94%. This is a decrease of 6. Oftentimes we're asked, are we seeing a reduction in these calls for service because nobody's just calling? And that could be very much the case with panhandling, since Sacramento has really the federal courts have looked at all of these different city ordinances that relates to panhandling, probably and may has reduced the number of panhandling type calls. And trespassing, another decrease in there. But the data here indicates that out of the 62, we've seen the reduction from 62 to 17. And most of their trespassing calls did involve homeless individuals. And then our suspicious activity, the reason I X'd that one out is with our new system, we have a number of different call types that play a role in that. And as we were doing our data collection and going over the statistics, we found that we might not have been capturing the data the way we should be. So we're going to go back to the drawing board and take a look at that. Again, year-to-date snapshot, 14 camps located, 8 of those on private property. This is a year-to-date 55% decrease. And those are those $780, the cost associated with the cleanup, our community service officers' time and officers' times, posting and coordinating cleanup. Our problem-oriented policing updates. One of the things we have going on now is, we're all aware of the railroad trellis over Interstate 80. A lot of graffiti and tagging on that trellis. Obviously, it's not the thing we want people to see as they come around the bend as they drive into the city. So Officer Roach has actually reached out to California Highway Patrol and Union Pacific to start coordinating the cleanup of that location. So we'll continue to provide updates, and I'm looking forward to the work that she's doing on that. Again, another same slide that we've showcased before. We have the citizen tracker on our website. We ask people to use that as a resource. That information goes right to our dispatch center, and they're able to input a call, and we can get officers out there as soon as they're available. And another highlight, the records at auburn.ca.gov is a good way to get some information. And again, using our website. And with that, that is the end of report. I'll stop sharing my screen now. So, any questions?
Ryan, thank you very much for the quick and concise report. Really appreciate it. There's a lot of information there. I'm going to go ahead and just turn this over to my fellow council members for questions. I see Councilmember Lance hand went up first, so I'll start with him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Chief, thank you very much for the update this evening. Appreciate, as always, the style of your presentations, let alone today's brevity. A couple questions, though, on the data, specifically the homeless data. Any thoughts on, and it's kind of a two-part question, but any thoughts on the impact from Project Home Key, Project Room Key, and how that may have played into the numbers in 2020 when we try to now compare the numbers to last year? If last year the state was putting homeless into rooms, does that kind of artificially change homeless numbers or even some of the issues?
That's a great question. I think that's when you start bifurcating the two different definitions. When we start looking at the Marvett study definition versus ours, and that's where if someone ends up going into some type of shelter, even jail, or somewhere else, it actually drops them off that, it has a high likelihood it's going to drop them off of the Marvett studies definition, as opposed to our definition of, have we contacted this person who's claims to be homeless, 4 months over that rolling period. And that's actually when you say, I showed those 8 numbers that could go down, that's because the MARBA study no longer considers them chronic homeless. So to your point, we could actually have an artificial reduction in that number because county health and human services put them into some type of shelter or some type of home. And as a result of that, they no longer meet the counties and the MARBA studies definition.
Okay.
Where they still meet ours. That's why we have, for us, we still have those 28 as opposed to reducing it to 20. So
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. I guess I just flag it that, that may have, artificially may not be the right word, but that may skew 2020's numbers because individuals may not have been, having to camp illegally because they were essentially put in a room. But your point is well taken about the dual definitions that we use here to capture that. Do you have any other thoughts though on impacts to the city related to Project Room Key or even Project Home Key, and whether it's helped or we're seeing any benefits?
Well, I think it's certainly helped because it's actually, when you get into Project Room Key, it actually coordinates that individual with the Health and Human Services resources. And the whole point is to get these folks to the resources they need so that, if we can put them into a shelter, we can get them into some type of living conditions where they're not on our streets, then it does help those individuals. And it does help us because we're not dealing with them the same way as we once were. When we first started on the COVID-19 aspect of it, as people were getting housed in one of our local motels, the concern was the calls for service that was going to generate already. And what we saw was some people wanted to go there, some people didn't. But again, the ultimate goal is if we can get them into some type of shelter and get them connected with the services, we have a higher likelihood of actually getting them the long-term help that they need. So hopefully something like that continues.
Appreciate that. On your calls for service, you noted a 46% increase in loitering. Thank you for pointing out the fact that it's a low number, and so that affects percentages, but it still is an increase in a bit of the opposite of the trend of the other data points that you shared with us. What are your thoughts, or what are your plans, even if it's a small rise in actual calls? What's your plan to actually address the 46% increase?
So a large part of the loitering obviously takes place on someone's private property, which is typically it's our shopping centers where they're hanging out, potentially overlaps with trespassing. And a big part of that is educating the community and the business community in those areas to get involved. We start talking about loitering and trespassing. Both those are misdemeanor crimes. Both those require a victim, to say the least, to come forward and work with us for us to issue citations or warn people about trespassing and be able to use that as a way to solve and address that problem. So these types of things really geared towards the education of that community, that part of that community. And that'll be one of our goals, is certainly as we move forward. We've tried before trying to get the different businesses and managements and ownership to get involved from a trespassing perspective. And I think a big part of it is now we can take this data and we can sit down with them and say, look, your business is creating a number of calls for service for the police department that are over and beyond that of a business of similar size or location, and be able to kind of help them working with us to solve that problem. Another part is using the nuisance laws for individuals. We have individuals that they are responsible for a number of our crimes or issues and calls for service by themselves. And I think working with under the nuisance laws by taking them, showing that they are a public nuisance, they are negatively impacting our community, and using that, certainly going through maybe probation or parole where applicable, and even with the district attorney's office to move forward on something like that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Also, I know this is a comment, but appreciate the attention to the railroad trestle. To me, it is the most blatant broken windows theory example. The tagging just keeps getting worse and worse, and not to mention, the fact that it just becomes this kind of mecca of more tagging. But just the economic piece of it, that's the very first thing you see coming into Auburn is an old railroad trestle that has, graffiti. And I would assume, actually, I know because I've shared it with you, gang graffiti, time to time on it as well. And so, the need for the UP to address the issue, which we've mentioned to them, has long come and gone. It really needs to be dealt with. So I appreciate your officer continuing to make headway there. Another point that you didn't raise, but just curious, the county has really been building this regional plan, and I know they've got a regional summit coming up later in this month. Any thoughts that you want to share with us about not just the regional approach, but will we get something out of the fact that the county is really trying to expand a regional plan to deal with and to address homelessness?
That's a great question, sir. Actually, nobody from the county has reached out to me to have this discussion on how do we take our regional model and how do we take our model or someone else's model and make it regional. I can tell you that like I've spoken many times, our community is different than all the other municipalities in the county within our region. How we want to approach it and our resources is different than every other city here. A big part of that is we talk. I think it goes back to you got to identify what our community issues and concerns are and what resources we need to delve into that. So, again, much like I've talked about the part-time clinician and from the county and everything else and bringing in those resources, we here don't necessarily have the resources that the county has access to. And, I think oftentimes it's probably where they end up with them at the DeWitt Center. That's obviously anecdotal on my part, but again, I haven't heard. I'm looking forward to the meeting on June 30th as well to hear from their panel members and see where we're going.
Well, I'm incredibly disappointed that they haven't come and asked the cities for any input. I'm appreciative of you being there. Many of us heard our county supervisor talk about it and update at Medler's at a kind of 30,000 foot level. I know the electeds, we've all been invited, to a dinner, related to the summit, which again, all that is great. But at the end of the day, it's you who is seeing the problem. It's you that we are tasking with addressing the problem. It's you that has been coming up with solutions. And so I would just urge our city manager to maybe even reach out to the county CEO and make sure that connection is occurring, because disappointing is the least of my words at the moment that I can sum this up with. It needs to happen. If they really want a collaborative plan, then talking to our police department who's dealing with this seems to be a no-brainer. I'll move on though. My last question here, and I appreciate, I know I always have a lot of questions and concerns on this item, but lastly, there's members in our community very well informed that pay attention to different calls that are occurring in the police department, and it tends to be, at least what I see, it's the same individuals over and over and over. And so, call them chronic homeless or whatever term you want to do, but it really appears that there's a very small number that the calls, not just camping, but a whole myriad of issues, are always the same individuals. And besides constantly taking them to jail when it's a jailable offense, how do we break this cycle of not having just the same bad actors constantly?
It's a great question. And the thing is, you can't keep applying the same model over and over, to your point. And you have to find ways that are unique and different. Oftentimes we talk about, you try to take that round peg and put it in that square hole. Sometimes that's not the answer, and we oftentimes go and we try to build this rapport and try to get these folks to the service that they need and are asking for it to some extent. But there comes a point where you just finally make someone do that. And that's where I mentioned the nuisance laws that are on the penal code books. We can use that as a resource. We can find someone that's constantly violating municipal codes or lower level misdemeanors. We can take that as a package and bring that to the district attorney's office and or probation or parole, like I said, where it's applicable, and use that as a resource to help kind of guide these folks to do the right thing. But you got to be unique. You can't keep doing the same thing. I know we have, like I said, we have a number of folks who are responsible or have been engaged in majority of our homeless or transient related type calls for service. That we can't have that either.
Great. Thank you, Chief, and appreciate you continuing to stay focused on it, because the transit issues aren't going away. The percentages may go up and down. I still myself come back to 2020 was an unusual year. There were more services than ever. I think the public and businesses were not as engaged, especially during some of the months. And so I think that some of the comparison numbers to 20 are a little bit difficult. So I appreciate you continue to keep your eye on the ball on this and making sure that these individuals are taken care of, that they have the services that they need, but more importantly, that our other way of life ordinances and just overall cleanliness and other items for our community are addressed. So Chief, appreciate the time. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my questions. Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, you're on mute. Sorry.
Clock went off. Sorry about that. I do have a quick follow-up to your questions, Councilman Berlant. The trestle, I mean, we've been talking about that for years, about trying to do something with it. I really appreciate hearing the fact that Chief Canan, you've got somebody on staff that's kind of pursuing that. It's an active trestle, it's an active line, and the railroad needs to take care of it. I mean, so thank you for that. The question I've got is related to the regional meeting that's coming up and our invite to a dinner. You've not been in contact with anybody at the county related to the homeless efforts and this upcoming summit, they call it. Is that correct, Chief?
That is correct. Nobody's reached out to me from the county to provide any additional information about the homeless summit or a regional approach. I too have listened to our supervisor on the Medler meetings, but there's been no outreach to us. Certainly not me that I'm aware of for that meeting. I know myself and two others from the police department will be attending that summit as well. So.
Okay. Well, obviously we'll be talking about that tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So I have other questions, but I want to turn it back over to the council, and I see Vice Mayor Amara has her hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, I just have a couple of quick questions. I just want to, I think we ask you this every time, but now it's become a reality. They did over at DeWitt, they did kick the individuals off the grass. So have you noticed any more and that was recent, fairly recent, probably a month or so. So has there been any individuals who have relocated over in the city or in this area?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, our community service officer, Connor Johnson, has pulled together the list of folks that we've been primarily in contact with, and there's been nobody that's kind of made that list recently.
Okay, and I'm disappointed as well that the county, before the closure, someone should have approached us. There should have been some coordination because obviously they have to go somewhere. And I think the shelter, I believe, was full to capacity. But another question, just turning your attention to businesses downtown, I guess my question is, when does the team works around the clock, or does it work just on an on-call basis? Do they go out at night and look in the alleyways or in behind stores by any chance?
So it's a multi-pronged approach. Our community action team is a completely part-time program. It's the officers and a community service officer who, in partnership with Health and Human Services, when they go out probation, when they participate with us and others, that they just go out for maybe their 2 operations a week, and they try to focus on those areas that have been identified as problem areas. So if people aren't calling, letting us know, hey, I have a homeless person back here or somewhere else, they're typically not going to go there. Now, the patrol officers also respond to the transient related calls. So it's not just the community action team that's focused on that. It's everybody as it relates to the homeless issue. So if someone calls us, we still go out. The officers still conduct their field interview cards. we still are able to notate, certainly on our, like I said, talk about this record management system and CAD system a lot, that we're able to notate that and put that information together. So again, it requires, this might be where some of our loitering calls saw an increase, that we had people calling us, certainly from the business aspect of it. But yeah, it's it's 24/7 if people are calling us, letting us know.
Okay, so that's good to know. So what, some of the business people have approached me and said that there's been some people sleeping behind their stores at night. So that's very important to disseminate that information. I appreciate that. And have you noticed, or, Auburn is getting more, some of the buildings are vacant. Has there been any problems with vacant buildings or homes around the area?
That's a good question. Not that I'm aware of, not that it's made its way into kind of a homeless type issue, but I haven't seen those crimes pop up either, as far as people breaking into homes or vacant homes. I haven't seen that in our dailies or weekly updates. So.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say that you do a wonderful job. The team does a wonderful job. I think the process is just excellent. I think we have, control of the situation. I like the way that there's an avenue for individuals who want it to be able to follow the path of getting off the streets. I appreciate all you do. And I'm just wondering, I'm posing a question to the City Council. I know it takes a lot of time and effort and energy for you to compile everything and do a presentation quarterly. Maybe we could do it semi-annually, but I'm just throwing that out. But I do appreciate all you've done. And I know if there's an issue, you will come forth and your team's on it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Amara. I appreciate it. Any other questions from the council?
I would just say, thank you very much for your presentation today. We had a lot of questions from my colleagues, and I don't really have any specific questions, but I do appreciate all of your efforts. This is a very difficult situation. I do think that 2020 has provided some cover, if you will. And it'll be interesting to see what the numbers are in the next two reports, just to kind of see, what kind of impact. I know that the state is still pushing the Project Turnkey and the Project Home Key as well. So they're still active programs, but it'll be interesting to see as we wind down from COVID, what kind of impact that may have on our population as well. One thing that I've actually observed, very interesting, is just the number of, interestingly enough, cigarette butts from folks. And I don't, if they're homeless or not, but I just noticed there are more people smoking in our, out on our trails, and maybe around some of those potential camps or what have you. But that's something that always alarms me. It's not just homeless by any means. I've seen people hiking smoking, so that's a whole other issue. But and I won't get stuck on that. But I also appreciate your proactive efforts with regards to the trellis and what to do with the graffiti that occurs there. My daughter points that out to me every time we drive under it. And so, if there's something that I can assist with that as well, with my contact with the railroad, you let me know as well. So, because that is something that we do need to clean up. I'm sure it's very difficult. I don't know. I've never seen somebody up there actually committing the crime. I can't imagine how they do it safely. I just don't. I don't know if we've ever caught anybody in the act. I don't know how they do it. It'd be great to catch them and then make them fix it, but in any event. So thank you very much for your report, Chief, and appreciate all the great work. Thank you.
Thank
you. Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Thank you. I just am going to echo, thank you. Appreciate all your time and effort. I know that this is just one of many things that you have to work on with your staff. And so I appreciate all your time. I'm not sure if we are the ones that requested a quarterly update, but I think that it would be good to have him have an update when there's something new or interesting, but maybe not necessarily have to do a quarterly report if there's nothing especially different happening, because there's a lot of things that are we have on the agenda, and I would leave it up to the police chief to alert us when something out of the ordinary is happening, or if there's a need for an update on this issue. But other than that, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So I see Councilmember Lance hands up.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I'll follow you because you were probably going to say the same thing.
I think given the activities that are going on out at DeWitt, which is where the temporary homeless shelter is, and the fact that they've started the demo of the buildings out there and removed all of the folks that were camping in the alcoves out there, that we need to continue, at least for the short term, these quarterly updates. And Chief, your reports are great, and the fact that now we have some real data that you can pull from our record system to help us develop the reports and refine the reports on a quarterly basis, I appreciate. So from my perspective, I think it's important, at least for this short term, that we continue these reports. Some of the conversations we've already had, I don't need to reiterate, but obviously tomorrow morning we'll have a chance to speak at Meddlers with our counterparts at the county, and the fact that we're not more actively involved in this conversation when we're an immediate neighbor of Placer County and some of the homeless activities that they're undertaking, i.e., rousting folks from their encampments at DeWitt, is troublesome. And I'm anxious to hear what Cindy has in response to that. And I also think that the room key and home key programs from the state will have a rippling effect through the city of Auburn. And whether we know it now or not, I'm guessing that things are underway and programs and properties are being purchased to house some of these folks that we don't even know about yet. So I guess from my perspective, I want to continue these quarterly updates in the near term, just so we have, at least quarterly updates and quarterly information that we can react to, like what we just talked about, the fact that we don't, we haven't been actively involved with the program that the county's working on as far as their homeless summit that's happening this month, later this month. So those are my comments. Thank you for all you do. I appreciate the detail of your reports. I think that the quality of presentations continues to be top notch, and whoever's doing those for you, Ryan, keep them employed. If it's you, thank you. I particularly love the heat maps, so we can kind of see where your officers are being called to on a regular basis. That's very effective in my mind. It resonates with me, so thank you. Appreciate it. I see Councilwoman Riddell Harris's hand up.
Would it be possible to get the presentation, or not the reports on a quarterly basis, but not necessarily have a presentation every quarter if we don't feel like it's necessary, or if Chief Canan doesn't feel like it's necessary to, because the information is good, but I don't know if it necessarily requires a full-on presentation every time. Maybe we could do presentations biannually, and then the off quarters we could just get a report that we could have on the consent calendar or given to us. I'm not sure if it needs to be on the actual agenda.
My only comment to that, Rachel, is how would we have known that he's not engaged in the county's process? I haven't asked him the question. Maybe you have, but I wasn't aware that he wasn't a part of the update process or the outreach process that the county is undergoing right now.
I would hope that he could communicate those things to us without it having to be part of a quarterly report. Is that not a possibility? If Chief Canan is having an issue with not being in contact with the people that he should be?
I didn't hear what you said. I don't know if it's my end. I didn't hear what you just said.
Sorry, I was just saying, if there's an issue, I would think that Chief Canan would let us know or let the city manager know, or if we wanted to, maybe we could put a section in his update that says issues that he's been having lately or something like that, so we could just read it without it having to be I've done presentations for city councils on it several times, and I just know it takes a lot of effort putting it together and all the time and being on. So I think the information's good, but I just don't know if it needs to be a quarterly thing that the chief needs to put his time and effort into. If the information's good, but not necessarily the presentation, I don't know.
So if I can just piggyback. So I appreciate that, Councilwoman Riddell Harris. I think just in the span of what we have, this 3-year strategic plan, we are in year 3. It's only 2 more quarters and then 1 more update. I certainly can see that as being maybe moving into the future. Once we finish this plan, maybe we roll into something else, and then the discussion go whether or not we need to do full presentations quarterly or not. But I think just for us, for me, I think as we finish this strategic plan, it's what the community, the council, even myself would agree to, and I'm willing to finish it off under this 3-year plan. So I hope it answers that component.
You do it after the strategic plan is done. I'm good with that.
I appreciate that, Chief, and Councilwoman Riddell Harris. I appreciate your concerns and comments about staff resources and the time it takes to put these presentations together. I don't think this issue is going away. So I would prefer to carry things out through the end of the 3-year term that we kind of all agreed to, and then we'll kind of reevaluate as a council from there. Councilmember Berlant, you have your hand up.
I'm going to just echo, I think, what the chief said. And I realized that, when we started this I think we started in 2016, came up with a plan in 2017. And the police chief, just to be clear, was directed to come back quarterly in front of us. And in front of us really is in front of the community, because there was a very large or very loud voice of community members that wanted more transparency into what we were doing to help homeless, what we were doing to help our business owners and our homeowners who were dealing with the various issues. And so I appreciate Councilwoman Amara's comments. I too agree that I think we are soon at the place where we can maybe phase to trying to use other tools to continue to communicate with the public, whether it be through social media or on the website, monthly updates. But I really like what the chief laid out. Let's finish this plan for the next 3 years. I too don't think this issue is going away. I still hear quite a bit of issues related to transients. That's the reason why I'm always pushing on some of the numbers and the comparisons. But I also very much appreciate the need to ensure that our police chief is not putting together presentations all the time. And so I think there's some balance, but I like his strategy. Let's finish this 3-year strategic plan up, and let's come back and have the conversation. But I'll just note that the ability for us, though tonight we're talking about it more thoroughly than maybe some other of the updates, it's important that the community who came to us in 2017 was very loud and clear. We want to make sure we're staying on top of it. And I think, as the mayor, you have said, related to not just DeWitt, but other changes in the state, the issue isn't going away. And we need to continue to make sure that that homeless in our community are taken care of, are given the services that they need, and that we're reporting to the community what resources are available to even them to combat the issue. So appreciate the comments, support what the chief has laid out.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Amara.
Sandy, you're muted.
I guess that helps. So just quickly, I'm fine with that if there's only a couple more. But I just want to appreciate also what Rachel's saying is in that we do have, Chief Canan is a very busy person, as we noted, and I think it's important for him. I trust what he does, and I trust that he will come forward and raise issues that are important to us. But so in the future, I think we should think about that. And I really like and support the idea of a written report that obviously gives us an ample opportunity. Then we can call Chief Canan if we have any issues and concerns, and always put it back on. But yeah, I'm fine with finishing there's 2 left, so that works. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Thank you, Councilwoman Riddell Harris. You had your hand up.
Thank you. I was just wanting to say, I'm not saying this isn't an important issue. Me, not necessarily thinking that the chief needs to come in quarterly to present it. Doesn't mean I think that there should be any less work on it. It just was talking about the best use of time and presentations and things like that. And so I think it's fine to have him do presentations. I didn't realize that this was part of a 3-year deal that is ending soon. So yeah, I really think this is an important issue. I don't necessarily know if we want to make sure that the public knows about it. If the city council is necessarily the best way of presenting that, there might be some ways that are even better at communicating to the public that we're actually getting work done on this issue. And I think that Chief Canan's worked really hard to do some outreach to the community to tell people what we're doing. So I think that he's doing a great job.
Great, thank you very much. Chief, as always, wonderful report. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just was going to weigh in here too, because everyone's had an opportunity to talk about this. And I don't want to, we've talked about this for quite a bit, but one just reminder is really, again, is transparency. And I do appreciate that there are ways to get this information out to the public. But right now, I think that the folks that are really keyed into this issue do pay attention to these council meetings. And it's not just an opportunity for us to analyze the data and to ask the questions, but it's that opportunity to allow the public to have that same communication with us and with our elected or with our police chief on this issue as well, because that kind of open communication can certainly develop new ideas, new suggestions on ways to manage things and so forth. So I like having that line of communication open and available. Again, we've already talked about this. This is only just for a couple more meetings before we're done with the 3-year commitment. We can certainly evaluate it then, but just reminding us that it's not just the council, that the public is here and enabling the public, giving them that opportunity to participate in the process, I think is key. We're Zooming and so it's hard, but when we're back in person, people come to our meetings, they want to engage, they want to ask questions. And I think it's important to be able for us to hear those questions and to hear those suggestions and to hear those concerns as well. So that's all I have to say about it. Thank you, Chief.
Amy, you have.
Speaking of engagement, we received a voicemail public comment during this item.
Awesome.
Would you like me to play that now?
Yes, please play any public comment that we have at this point, Amy.
This is Cheryl Kisleff for public comment. As someone who has worked across the street from School Park Preserve for 17 years, what we are experiencing with the homeless doesn't coincide with the statistics that were released earlier this evening. In the past 2 to 3 years, of course, the calls have dramatically increased. Our experience with the homeless has dramatically increased. And in the past 6 months, we've had more problems with homeless situations than we have in the past 14 or 15 years. I did send an email on the Auburn CA website for Public Works to come out and clear away the brush on the city property. I sent that on May 3rd. I'm still waiting to hear and hoping someone can address that concern fairly soon. But I would be interested in knowing more information about how that data was gathered regarding the homeless situation, because it does not coincide with what we are experiencing. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And that concludes public comment.
All right, thank you very much, Amy. I think that public comment is a perfect example of why we need to continue this at least through the next couple of quarters. What we're hearing is only what the community conveys to the chief, and the reports that come into the chief, to the police department. So again, this effort and this task force was put together back in 2016, as Councilmember Lant mentioned. He and I kind of chaired this thing, and we came up with a plan in 2017. Let's write out the program. Let's see where we end up. Chief, thank you very much for your thorough reports and updates. Again, your CAD RMS system, I think, is providing greater detail to this issue. And given the fact that the county is undertaking their own activities to deal with their situation just across our city-county line is more indicative of our potential issues that we need to remain vigilant and focused on as we move forward. So with that, I'll thank you, Chief, for your time tonight and your hard work on this issue, and look forward to your next report in a few months. And we'll go ahead and jump on to our next item, which is item 18, strategic planning dates. And I'll turn this over to City Manager Dunleavy for his quick presentation on this.
Very quickly, I've sent a spreadsheet out to the City Council asking for you to go through, find some dates, just click on the dates that you can make it, send it right back to me, and we will be scheduling strategic planning for sometime in either July or in August. I've also included in the agenda item just kind of a summary of some of the things that we talked about. I'll share with you that the chiefs and I will be meeting with the council members, trying to start ramping up for the next strategic planning session. So if you can get the dates back to me so we can set the date, and we will move it forward. And that's my report.
Great, thank you very much, John. And for the citizens' information, this is kind of a follow-up on some goal-setting workshops that we had with then our sort of new, partially seasoned city manager, John Dunleavy, with activities in the city of Auburn to come up with council members' request goals, objectives for the upcoming years. So this is a great next step. Appreciate that. And for all of us council members, and I being one of them that has not quite yet sent that form over to the city manager, please fill those out if you haven't already and send them over to John so we can get some workshops agendized and move this forward.
Just one quick thing. Hey, John, I saw those dates and almost all of those don't work for me because July is really the only time that I have to take vacation with my kids and stuff. So I don't know if it's worth you tallying everyone's dates up if only one of those out of the July dates actually works for me. So we might need to come up with a new group of dates just before everyone works their time.
And that's fine. Just let me know, and that's part of the quest is finding the magic date.
Any other month, but July is my month that I'm just on.
Okay.
So summertimes are tough, but fill it out. Rachel, shoot it over to John if you haven't done it already, and we'll adjust from there. Any questions from the council on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to ask, Rachel, can you, do you mind repeating one more time? Was it just the July date that worked?
One July date that works out of those ones that were put there.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I'm saying most of you don't, so I don't know if it's worth everyone going through and saying yes, no, if I can't make it.
Which date, Rachel, if you don't mind me asking?
The only one that worked was the, shoot, what was it? Now I can't find it.
That's okay.
I'll look and I'll shoot you guys an email or text.
Get it to John and we'll coordinate from there. Any other questions for John? John, thank you very much. Appreciate you pushing this strategic planning process forward. Our next item is, I'm sure, a very brief city manager's report from Mr. Dunleavy.
I will. Only good things coming before the council, as will be the city budget coming up at the next meeting. Lots to do with that. That'll be the focus of the next meeting. Accessory dwelling units, the implementation program is going to be coming before the council. kudos to our building official, John May. Things are really coming together on those, and it's working. Menjel Dean and Rachel Wells have been coordinating the Confluence shuttle. I will tell you that ridership is going up literally week by week, and it is outperforming. Last week we had a meeting with Caltrans and folks from El Dorado County. They described a process that they were putting together an RFP to find a consultant to do a study to look into Confluence parking and the possibility of exploring an option to do a shuttle. And they all pointed out that Auburn just stepped up and did it. So, yeah, so all the way around, really good. Our maintenance staff is very busy all throughout the city. Lots of painting going on, stop bars, crosswalks. Look for them. A lot of the time they're doing it in the evening, but they are out painting like you can't believe. Kudos to the chamber. Chamber's got some very good initiatives going on. I think Auburn is really starting to hit its stride post-pandemic. The chamber, Downtown Business Association, Old Town Business Associations, all have lots of things that are going on. I would particularly look after the emails and things that they're sending out. It's almost exhausting. I want to talk with you about some things that are coming up in the next couple of months. Going to be very busy with our commissions and our committees, specifically the Economic Development Committee. I'm going to be giving a pretty exhaustive or extensive presentation on the economy of Auburn. And I'll bring the same thing back to the council to look at. But we're going to take a look at all the drivers for Auburn to them. Planning Commission is going to be looking at some of the legislation that's coming down in the planning area. I will tell you that our volunteers in Auburn are exceptional. Whether it's the commissions, the committees, arts, the cruise night. If you didn't see the mob that came into Auburn last Friday, I will tell you that Mr. Dwelly's comments, we handled that out there on Friday night. People are going to be able to back into the parking spaces. I just green lighted that. AAA is going to have what I think is going to be a very lively meeting next Tuesday. It'll be worth some popcorn. I will tell you that our fire department is going through doing a lot of hiring captains, engineers, firefighters. We have very good leadership throughout our fire department right now. I will tell you the same thing in the police department. Chief gave a good presentation on homeless, but the amount of outreach that they're getting out of the cars, they're meeting with our businesses, meeting with people, good things. And then finally, I will tell you just a really fun thing. Half of the Robinson Flat aid station for the Western States Endurance Run is in my garage right now. And I am very fired up to do it. The theme for our aid station is Inclusive America. So I think we're all going to look like rednecks and hicks out for the Western States Endurance Run, which is a week from this coming Saturday. So stay tuned. And that's my report.
So John, just one other quick note. You had a very significant personal celebration that occurred not last Saturday, the Saturday before last. Congratulations. You want to share just briefly with us?
You know, I tell folks, before you have kids, you can never imagine having kids. After you have kids, you can never imagine not having them. And I tell people very unabashedly that the two happiest days of my life were when my children were born. And I will tell you that we have a new daughter in our family now. With my son getting married, it was absolutely amazing. And it is one of those days that really will touch your soul. And It was a great experience. In COVID, getting married is not easy, but we worked around it. All the right people were there, and I appreciate you asking. It was a pretty darn good day.
Well, look forward to that myself. Congratulations, John. Any questions for the city manager from the council? Alrighty, we'll do city reports, and I'm going to go in the order that I see folks on the screen. I'll start with Councilmember Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be really quick. The Placer County Air Pollution Control District, we met last week. Just a couple things on the agenda that I wanted to note. One was the fact that the district will be signing a state memorandum of understanding as one of, well, the first, but one of the few air districts to join in acknowledging the need for managed fire and prescribed fire and using that as a technique to reduce our overall fuel reduction work. This is a big issue in the fire side of the world and land management side, but often pushback from the State Air Resources Board and those that champion air quality. But our air district really leads this issue in understanding that low intensity prescribed fire it puts off a significantly less amount of pollutants into the air than uncontrolled wildfire. So the district's moving ahead, joining a statewide memorandum of understanding for managed fire. The Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee met a couple weeks ago, but after our last city council meeting. On the agenda, several items that we have been focused on here. One is discussed the pension obligation bond and just the how great our city staff were at getting such an amazing numbers, and so lots of discussion there. That committee is very focused, interestingly enough, about the initiative to get the Western States Run and the Tevis Cup as being the California endurance races. That committee, not as much of a fan for some of those members of doing that, but I believe the Chamber of Commerce has already moved forward as a board to support that. But at the Government Affairs Committee, lots and lots of back and forth at the meetings. So that was on the agenda. But similar issues that they are engaged on, and one of those is the Bureau of Reclamation wildfire plan for the Auburn Shaded Fuel Break. Myself, as well as Congressman McClintock's office, was there and briefed them out. They're very likely to, as a government affairs team, to take a stand on it as well. And I have Fire Safe Council later this week, and I think Traffic Committee met, but we think we've had a council meeting between then. The only item there that keeps rearing its head, and I know John will acknowledge that it's moving forward just by smiling at me, that the Lincoln Way project to address the idea of having a one-way was a continued discussion item. So with that, that's all I have for reports today.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Amaro.
Thank you. A couple of things. I was part of the sustainability. I'm a part of the committee that was working on the website, and so we're making some progress. We met. Also, as you indicated, Mayor Spokley, I stood in for you at the Veterans Garden event, and our city manager was there, and Councilwoman Cavillo was there, and it was a wonderful event. They honored a veteran who is 98 years old, one of the oldest around, and it was just a beautiful event. And there was a lot of booths there, and the vets were honored, and I thoroughly enjoyed being there. Then I have the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. I'm going to stand in for Supervisor Holmes, who can't make it tomorrow, Wednesday. And then sustainability is on Thursday. I did attend a Downtown Business Association meeting, and I'll just be fast. The thing what everybody needs to know is that June 17th, no, next Monday, is that June 17th? No, next Monday, the 21st at 7 p.m. will be the umbrella celebration. Come by. They are having music under the umbrellas on Friday and Saturdays. They are also, our trash problem has been resolved. And the co-op on the 17th has been canceled because of the heat. And they're working very hard on potential lighting around town, around the buildings in town. They're working on the Highway 49 billboard. So they have an awful lot going. And so that ends my report, my committee report.
Sandy, thank you very much. A quick question. Is the umbrella ceremony open to general public? It seemed to me when I got the invite, it was for just a limited number of folks, because I had the opportunity to announce it on my K-High radio interview that I did with Barry Steiger, but I wasn't 100% sure I could do that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I know it's primarily for individuals who contributed, and there was an invite. Whether or not people can stop by, I am not sure. I can't really answer that. But I do know it is by invite, and it's primarily, the focus is for contributors.
Oh, people definitely will stop by. It's a wonderful installation. Thank you very much for those reports, Sandy. Appreciate it. Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Thank you. The main meeting that I was able to attend between last council meeting and this one is the Arts Commission meeting. That's similar to what Sandy was talking about. There's going to be lots of fun art and music this summer. There's some really exciting things that are going to be happening. The umbrella event is happening. They're painting utility boxes, which is kind of fun. So they're doing some more of those around town. They also, the school park preserve, a lot of the events that normally were held at the library are moving over. So they already did a Midsummer Night's Dream there, and it went really well. They're going to be doing music in that park and all kinds of events and things throughout town at the school park preserve and the art park. And so they're really excited about all that. They've been working really hard to schedule it all up. They're also talking about Community Service Day, which they're hoping to be rescheduled in October-ish. They want to get on the calendar early, so that way they don't conflict with things, because that was an issue this time. And then one of the things that, if anyone knows any artists that are interested in donating their time to an elementary school, Skyridge Elementary is looking for an artist to help add some art that they're looking to put in certain places. So we've been trying to find an artist that is interested in drawing a few things around their campus. So those are the main things that are going on. Oh, and also this wasn't from the meeting, but talking about things that are canceled, the chamber mixer is not going to be canceled. It actually is going to be indoors with air conditioning. So it's going to be like 106 or 108 on that day. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Councilwoman Dunn Cabillo.
Yes, so thank you very much. Really, I have several meetings this month, actually this week. I have Pioneer is meeting the Board of Governors. And of note, we have scheduled that we'll be taking action to discontinue the Empower program. Some of you may be aware of that particular program that the county initially started to help folks finance energy conservation kinds of activities like new cool roofs and windows, solar projects, and so forth. So those that still have an active loan with Empower will continue to have that loan serviced, but we will be taking action to discontinue any new Empower loans in the future so that we can really focus our energy at Pioneer on the distribution of energy and various services that we can provide specifically around that versus loaning out monies. Also, we have a meeting with SHAC, so that will happen this particular, actually, I think that might be next week, but in any event, that's all that I have to report at this point, and the majority of my meetings will be happening this week, so thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have to report that we did have an EDC meeting last week. We talked about some of our initiatives that we're going to be moving forward with in the upcoming year and kind of refining those initiatives and programs. And that is it. So any other comments, questions? Seeing none, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn our meeting this evening. Thank you all for attending. Amy, good to see you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.